everybody give me another minute?
I welcome everybody, and I'm Carolyn Goodwin, co-president of the League of Women Voters. We're very happy to have you here. It's important to have the public represented, and according to the responses that I received, Representative Carlson and Representative Henderson are going to be here. Oh, speak of it. No. Speak of Bob. He's here. And I just want to make an announcement, because one of our participants for many years in these forums was Representative West Whitehead. And if you haven't heard, it's in today's paper, he passed away at age 90. And his service will be Tuesday, I'm told, in South Sioux City. Didn't catch that when I was reading. But Wes was always a regular at these events, going back to the days when we met at the old senior center. So keep his family in your thoughts. They were special people. And I always appreciated it. His grandson, and I was a counselor at West High, his grandson was a West High graduate and served as his secretary. And I always thought that was really cool. And I now introduce the other half of our counseling department at West High. She knows I always take the microphone. Bernie Scholten, who will be our moderator today.
Thank you. Time's going to run out. I had it. On your seats, just know that there is a list of all the committees that our representatives represent. For your knowledge, when you ask, especially later when you're asking questions. I would like to welcome legislators and all those in attendance for today's public legislative forum, hosted by the League of Women Voters of Sioux City and the Siouxland Growth Organization, who is our co-sponsor today. I'm Bernie Scholten, a League of Women Voters board member, and I am, as Carolyn Goodwin said, moderating today. The League of Women Voters of Sioux City has been in existence since 1920. And it's not for women only. We have information at the entrance of our table over there if you wish to learn more or even think about becoming a member. As an organization, the League of Women Voters does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. However, the League does take positions on selected issues which members have studied and agreed upon. We have hosted these public forums since the 1980s. Today's forum is live streamed on the League of Women Voters Sioux City Facebook page and can also be viewed afterwards. Our co-president, Dr. Simmons, will be doing the filming. Those watching can send questions to our Facebook page. We have a member monitoring the questions, and she'll have the opportunity to ask those questions for you. We do want to thank the Sioux City Mayor's Youth Commission for being our timers, and for doing so over the past 20 years at various community forums. Now let's do some introductions. Our Mayor's Youth Commission timers include Tom Elliott, 9th grader from Bishop Heelan, Claire Gahan, 9th grader from North High, Tate Behrens, an 8th grader young ambassador from North Middle School, Zach Foland from West High School, 11th grader, and Xander Foland, 9th grader at West High School as well. They'll be keeping time for our legislators so we can keep moving and answer as many questions as possible. They're accompanied also by Rachel Lundgren, Executive Director of Siouxland Cares. Our legislators present today, we will have Representative Ken Carlson, who's running late, but will be here. We have Representative Bob Henderson, Representative J.D. Scholten, and Senator Kevin Owens. Unfortunately, Representative Jacob Bossman and Senator Rocky DeWitt are unable to attend today. Let's just start. It's been a busy session so far. Some bills have made it past that first funnel. To start today, I'm going to ask each of you to share a little, maybe choose one piece of legislation about what maybe you're most concerned about or what most passionate about that you want to share before we get started. And I'll start with Representative Henderson.
Well, good. Here we go. Yeah. Check, am I on? Yes, I am. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending. It's good to see you all. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that most of you were not at the education forum. Am I correct on that? Okay, that's fine. Well, of course, the issue that's been foremost has been the Area Education Association. I'm going to call it reorganization bill. That's not what it's actually called, but that's pretty much what it is. And we're in the midst of that. That's not something that's being rushed through. In fact, the House plan on that is a 3-year program. It's a 3-year plan. It includes task force and much more. And if any of you wanted to stick around afterwards, I can explain it more in detail. I brought a graphic with me that we can use to do that. The one thing that we did do this week was we passed a 3% increase SSA bill in the House. That does not include all of the increases that will happen. I fully expect that we will pass the bill that will allow for an increase in starting salaries for teachers across the state. Probably will be $47,500 starting salary for 1 year, and then go to $50,000 the second year. So those are important bills to me because obviously I have a background in education, so it fits with what I'm doing down there. So thank you.
J.D. Scholten, House District. Oh, darn it. Yeah, I know. There we go. J.D. Scholten, House District 1. I appreciate you mentioning about Representative Whitehead. His motto was a working man for working families, and he represented, which is now mostly my district. So just, in this position, there's a lot of others that have come before us, and just appreciate his efforts. When it comes to some of the bills, the AEA bill is kind of been the most talked about one. We tend to refer to it on the Democratic side as the governor power grab, amongst many things. We passed the 3%, the House Republicans passed it. We had bipartisan opposition with it. We were pushing for 6%, and here's the difference. With 3%, it means that 116 school districts are going to have to raise property taxes this next year. With the governor's bill, or the governor's version, it's 2.5%, and I believe the Senate is as well, but I'm not 100% sure. They haven't gone to vote yet. 140 school districts, so that's roughly half the school districts in this state are going to have to raise property taxes to make up for that, the difference there. Meanwhile, we have the voucher program that was passed last year, which has an unlimited standing appropriation. There's no caps, and just the difference between what we're providing private school kids versus public school kids with taxpayer money is pretty distinctly different. And then lastly, I just want to pay attention to and note how disappointed I am with the findings of Seaboard Triumph and having those kids working overnight shifts illegally. It's been a trend across the nation. We passed, I opposed, but it was passed last year to relax the child labor laws. And it's things like this that where kids should be in school and not working these overnight shifts. That it's the wrong direction for this state. Thank you. And welcome, Ken.
Senator Kevin Long, Senate District 7, which is most of Woodbury, all of Monona, part of Cherokee, and part of Plymouth counties. On HHS, let's see, technology, veterans, appropriations, and ag. So pretty good smattering, but not on education. We've had obviously a bunch of discussion about education, and that will continue. And I've been talking quite a bit with Senator Lynn Evans, who's got a ton of experience in that in that realm, so I appreciate his input and we'll just continue to work on it. I don't quite know where the SSA thing is, so I've heard 2.5, I've heard 3, so I don't know, we'll see where the Senate goes. I'll go back to since you brought it up, JD, the child labor laws. Obviously, we made some changes to the law last year, but the situations that we just saw at Seaboard and elsewhere are clearly outside of those rules. So, I mean, just to put that in perspective, I mean, the rules that we brought, I think, frankly, were pretty common sense and just gave opportunity to kids who chose to work maybe instead of doing sports or something else to have that flexibility. So, just to say that. A couple things that I really I'm hoping will make some progress is there, and it was on the governor's agenda, that was putting some restrictions on access for pornography and also some limits on social media in our culture. I mean, these are root issues that I think are causing a lot of the degradation that we see in culture. And it's compounding the mental health issues that we're seeing as well. Mental health is obviously another big topic that there is a bill that's been running through to reform mental health, to align it more with substance abuse, and try to ensure that there is comprehensive, equitable coverage and access for that program. So that's something that, given my position on HHS, I'll get to have some input on. So I'll just leave it with that. There's obviously lots of topics, and they've already covered the education stuff. But
Just to come back to Representative Carlson, who's here, just to share a piece of legislation that maybe is important to you or that you would like to talk about or let us know about.
First of all, according to my calendar, I'm 15 minutes early. According to the notice I got on my phone as I was coming up here, I'm 15 minutes late. And based on the math that was used in the Iowa House on Thursday, I'm right on time. So I apologize for being here late. District 13 representative, rookie, you've all heard those things from us before, from me in particular, but I'm on Ag, Natural Resources, Veterans Affairs, and Technology. Two things I would just like to mention before we get started. Number one, the road grader bill did not come out. So there are some things that we do that are appropriate, and that road grader bill was nonsense as far as I was concerned, so I was happy for that. Second thing, this is of extreme importance, I think, to the state of Iowa. This past Thursday was the 81st birthday of the christening of the USS Iowa battleship, which was the largest of the Iowa-class battleships, at 45,000 tons and 900 feet long. It has been decommissioned. It is now in the Los Angeles Harbor, where there is quite a large group that is working very hard to preserve the USS Iowa, which I think is important. It's been known as the President's Ship, based on the number of presidents that have been on it and a part of it. The state of California has put forth $6.7 million to take care of the park and the museum that surrounds the USS Iowa. And so my clerk and I are working on getting the word out to as many Iowans as we can that if you would like to support putting a new deck on the USS Iowa, those funds would be greatly appreciated. You can go to the USS Iowa, what is that thing called? YouTube, and find more information about it. We had that birthday party on Thursday. We had cake. It was well attended. So those would be my opening comments, as we say.
Before we begin with audience questions, I'd like to bring up the president of the Siouxland Growth Organization, our co-host, Sydney Marks, to just share briefly information about the organization, and she'll also ask the first question today.
Thank you, and thank you to League of Women Voters for having us co-sponsor today. We're really grateful to know that they want us to have a voice, young people to have a voice in this community, just like everyone else. So, Siouxland Go is really just about creating community within the young professionals within Siouxland, young professionals across every industry. So if you know anyone or think anyone could really benefit or want to, even mentor any of our young professionals, please reach out to us. We'll be back there. But let's get to it. So for our representatives and senators, what are you doing to ensure that the Siouxland community is retaining younger people and building their foundations and families here? Are there any amenities, attractions, or venues that you think we could benefit from?
very important because, I mean, I left. I know a lot of my classmates left. I chose to come back, and Sioux City means the world to me, and so whatever we can do to help pass it on to the next generation is very important. So one of the things, what I've seen a lot of, especially out of the pandemic, is understanding where our food comes from. And if you heard me talk a lot about Sioux City is the largest city in the state of Iowa that doesn't have a food hub, and I think what we need is just a little bit of build that infrastructure. The want and the needs are there. I know younger people are more focused on where their food comes from. Just to put things in perspective, 90% of the food Iowans eat is imported, and the average produce at a grocery store travels about 1,500 miles. Most likely it comes from California. And so what I want to do is create more of a food system. It adds to our health. It will lower healthcare costs when we eat healthier. It's a win-win. And one of the most important things is the return on investment and the money that stays here in the state. And we're just missing out on a lot in this state when it comes to that. And that's one of the projects I would like to focus on.
But I think that's a good idea, actually, so.
Thanks.
Yeah. I guess I'm pretty new to the Senate, obviously, and most of us actually are new to the legislature. So one of the things, obviously, that's happened over time that we really see, it's quite a contrast here in the Siouxland area, is taxes. Taxes have driven so many people out of this area, and that was income tax primarily. So that glide path that we're already on, that we continue, and obviously there's two parts to, if you're gonna manage taxes and make them not onerous and such a contrast with South Dakota or other surrounding states, that requires fiscal discipline as well. So that, I mean, I know that's not a sexy selling point, but it's a foundational thing to making Siouxland or Iowa be competitive. And so we'll continue to obviously focus on that and trying to, and also at the same time, obviously, we've got to make sure that government is funded and the things that we need are provided. So.
I'm not sure exactly how much taxes affect young people, but they probably do.
It affects the overall.
Yeah, overall. No, I'm not disagreeing with Kevin, I'm just saying that, we enjoy here, we're one of the few cities in the state that enjoy the targeted jobs program, and that is probably going to be continued. I've been given assurance by both leadership aspects in the House of that, so I think that's probably going to be coming out with a tax bill, which is really good because that allows us to, job placement and opening jobs is really critical. We're in competition for not only the rest of the state on that, but obviously 2 other states here, so that certainly helps. I think a lot of things that we've done in Siouxland, I've lived here since 1989 and seen dramatic changes in the environment and the social structure, I guess I would say in general, of Sioux City, and a lot of that has come from state opportunities, and so we'll continue that.
Thank you. We now invite the audience members to line up over here at the mic, and we'll be taking as many questions as time will allow us. We'll be getting the mic over there in a second. We have asked the legislators to keep their answers to 90 seconds. Our timers are already doing their job and making sure that happens. When you come up to the mic, we ask that you give your name before you question, so we know who you are. And with that,
Thank you. I'm an endangered species. I'm a male. I'm with League of Women Voters, so I'm earning my keep for the first time today. I wear many hats in Sioux City and have, and I was involved in the healthcare field, and I'm a certified volunteer with Lutheran Services in Sioux City. And sometimes there's a lot of people that Lutheran Services can't help.
The mic down.
Okay. Hello?
I don't think
Hello.
Well, it was on for Bernie.
Thanks. I have a big voice, so I think you heard me without that. Could anybody not hear it? Hello?
It was on for
Thank you. So my life has become involved with immigrants. Lutheran Services can't help all immigrants, so I've become like a self-trained social worker, case worker with these people. And I brought a friend of mine for a Reasba Day. He's one of the people that I've helped settle, and Lutheran Services has helped settle, and he's going to tell you a little story.
Hello everyone. My name is Noor. I have come from Afghanistan. I came to from Afghanistan to America in September 2022. So almost a year and a half in America. Oh, I think they So September 2022 was when I came to America from Afghanistan. And can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yes.
I worked for the U.S. government in Afghanistan for 5 years. I worked for them as a linguist, and we were translating all these training modules that Americans had to train Afghans. The company that I was working for was a big international aviation company of the U.S. forces that was operating in Afghanistan, so they were training Afghans at the same time, and we were the translators for those Afghans. And we also worked administrative jobs as well for them, so they kind of prepared us for a U.S. life. So we are grateful for that. And while working for Americans, I went to the American University of Afghanistan, and I studied accounting there. And I'm still working on my master's degree, and I'm with Oxford University. Well, the American University was a bridge between our main school, which our school is located in London. It's called ACCA. It's an international accounting certification, something like US GAAP, CPA. But there are differences. This is why I had to take a US taxation class. I just finished it last night, so I took my last test last night, so I finished it, my US taxation class. Thank you. I'm working for the mayor of Sioux City now, Bob Scott, as an accountant. So he hired me as an accountant, and I'm grateful to him. And my trip to America, well, when the Taliban took over, I was at home. I was working at the airport. That's where my job was. But for whatever reason, I don't remember it right now, I didn't go to work on that day. So I received a phone call from my friends that the Taliban has taken over the capital, Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. So I was at home, and then later on, I couldn't make it to the airport, so I got stuck. I couldn't get out of Afghanistan. I got stuck in Afghanistan after the Taliban. Oh my God. Well, I don't know, do I have can you guys hear me well? Oh, yeah. I got stuck for 10 months after the Taliban took over. That was a good opportunity as well, because I didn't have to do anything. I was in my room studying, so finished my studies. But it was not good for my safety and security, so I had to hide. Later on, after 10 months, the U.S. evacuation team took me out from Afghanistan to Qatar, the U.S. military base. And then I stayed there for 2.5 months, got my visa processed. And then I came to America through Chicago, and then they brought me to Sioux City. So this was the story of my journey to America. I hope everyone heard me, even though...
Yeah.
So, this is an immigrant,
Get
a
your
real
mic.
live one. Have you shaken hands with an immigrant lately? Okay, good. It's going to take him 5 years to get his citizenship. I'm going to tell you a quick other story. There's a family in Sioux City, husband, wife, 2 kids. They came to Iran. They were driven out. He was a police officer. Taliban took his home, his car, everything. They were driven out. She had 1 baby in Iran. They lived there 7 months, lived in Brazil for 3 months. Then they came through 5 South American countries to the Mexican border, were put in a camp, and they came here because their friend Sasha is here. I worked with his family for a year. So what this is all leading up to is there's some bills with some numbers, and I don't pretend to know all the numbers, what they all mean. But HF 2112 limits access to certain benefits available for eligible immigrants. SF 2211, HF 2381 would allow law enforcement to act as federal immigration agents. SF 108 aims to require Iowa businesses to use E-Verify, which is not reliable all the time. HF 2320, formerly HF 2128, requires proof of citizenship to access in-state tuition. He won't have a citizenship for 5 years. And then there's others, HS 703 and 2340 allows Iowa law enforcement to enforce federal immigration laws, which to me is scary. So I think I've made my point. This is an immigrant, I'm helping other immigrants, there's a whole list of other, they're contributing to our city. Tyson, you just mentioned Seaboard, Wells, you don't want to work there. These people are working there, okay? So I'm a little worried, and I take this personally with all these things.
I just want to say thank you for all your efforts. I know working with the U.S. government while you were over there, you put a lot of yourself and your family at risk. And so that's, like, to me, how the fact that you have to wait 5 years is so unacceptable for all that you've done for us already. And so I just want to say thank you and appreciate you coming to Sioux City and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Pat Gill, Woodbury County Auditor. Just as I was standing here in line, I have a new granddaughter that was born Thursday, and I just learned her name. It's Blair Engel, Blair Rose Engel. So welcome to the program. I'm here to talk to you today about elections legislation. There's two bills. One, their House file is 2610. The companion bill is Senate file 2380. And lots of things that are contained in it, but when I talk about absentee voting, for some reason the legislature over the last several years has really put restrictions on absentee voting. And the folks that are hurting the most when you do that in Woodbury County, my experience has been, is that the elderly and the disabled. Those are the folks that are making it hard for them to vote. Yep. And one of the things that we had I'm going to go through a couple issues here. The first one is the ballot box. During the pandemic, we put 2 ballot boxes in Woodbury County by the courthouse. And these were very convenient and very popular with voters. And the reason that the thing good about the ballot box is once we left beyond the pandemic is that it also has to do with what you did as far as making sure that there's a drop dead deadline now. Used to be, as long as the ballot was postmarked the day before the election, they could be counted up until the canvass. Now there's a drop dead deadline. But the Postal Service, and I don't know why this is occurring, but right now there's been cases in Sioux City. You put a letter in the mail, first-class mail, and it takes up to a week for somebody else to get it in Sioux City. I don't know why that's been happening, but it has been happening. So the ballot box really helps there because those folks that vote their ballot and they want to drop it off, they want to make sure that we're going to be able to count it. They drop it off in that ballot box on the weekends. So I don't understand what the boogeyman is about the ballot box because it works very well. It actually saves the county money because otherwise if those folks put their ballot in the mail, we have to pay for the postage and the return. So I don't understand what the deal is with the ballot box. Now the other thing is a voter verification number. And that's that now you have to put it on your absentee request form in order to request a ballot. So most voters do that. Some do it wrong because they'll put in the last 4 digits of their social security number, and that is not a voter verification number. It's either your driver's license or non-operator ID or a PIN number that nobody knows that they have. Somebody said, I'll buy you a beer if you know what your PIN number is. So the voter verification number now, though, but what they're saying is, right now we have a 2 envelope system that we send the ballot out to you, you fill out the ballot, you put it in the return envelope, you sign it and send it back to us. The signature is on the outside of the envelope, so when we process it, we can tell that the signature is there and it's not defective. Now they want to go to the 3 envelope system, which honestly the auditors are opposed to that, but honestly, as a result of what occurred here in Woodbury County, where we had voter misconduct, election misconduct take place, and it was through signature verification, because Iowa isn't a signature verification state. It was struck down in Supreme Court or the District Court as being unconstitutional. I didn't ever want to be in the position that we were trying to decide whether a person voted just because we were looking at that signature. But what this does is say that you have to put the voter verification number also on the affidavit envelope, and that's why that's the third envelope. I'm not so opposed to that. After the experience that we had with what took place here in Woodbury County, that's probably a good thing. I don't know if it will really help, but it strikes out the section that had been put in there with signature verification because that's unconstitutional. The next thing that you do to, what the auditors have been asking for, we have 20 days of early voting in the state of Woodbury County. And right now, we can't mail those ballots out until the day that we start early voting in person. So what happens is a lot of folks will request an absentee ballot, and they won't get it by the time the polls open. I mean, by the time in-person voting starts. So they'll go to the satellite station, and then we have to cancel that one that we already sent out to them. So what we've asked for is 5 days before that period starts, that we can just mail those ballots out. Just to go back to what I was talking about, the postal service. That's why that's a good thing. Because otherwise we have these ballots out there floating around. When people come in and say, I request an absentee ballot, but they get very nervous because they only have 20 days of early voting, so they go there. So please move that from 2 days to 5 days that we can do that. And then the other thing that this legislation does is now it restricts that the drop dead date is the day before the election. You have to have an absentee ballot into our office by 5 o'clock. And what that does is that, right now, we can call and cure, we can ask folks about information in order to cure it. There's deficient and defective. But what this legislation says that if you don't have the PIN number in there, it's defective. So by the time that those folks, they send it to us, we find out that there's an error on it, their ballot's going to be rejected. They're being disenfranchised. So we're going to count less votes this way than what we're doing now. So my question is, just to limit it and save some time, what is the deal with the ballot box? Thank you.
All the topics basically when it comes to elections. I mean, the way elections work is, as everybody here probably knows, it's a secret ballot election. So once that ballot is put into the pool, there's no way to ever reconcile it. So everything that's being done is about integrity of the system, which really comes down to chain of custody. So you have to have a good chain of custody of the ballot. A ballot box is it's a box on the wall. It's just another area in a kind of a weakness in the chain of custody. That would be my perspective. So I think that elections are obviously critical to a democracy, to our constitutional republic. Elections, trust in the election, having faith in the election is critical to our country functioning. And in times past, obviously you just went to you showed up, you cast your ballot in person and voted. And I guess we've become very fixated on convenience. But we have to make sure that tension between integrity and reliability is maintained. So I would say that is at the heart of it.
I think there's this notion that when everything was in one place, it was a grander time, but the reality is it disenfranchised a lot of people, and allowing
Thank you.
adds to our democracy and inclusive. And so I think the more people who can participate in our democracy is better for us all, and ultimately better for our country. And so obviously we need to have secure elections and putting the pillars in place so that no matter which party is in charge, I think that's ultimately should be the goal.
Thanks, Jay.
I really think that any protocol that we have for balloting can always be probably argued against, or there can be fault found with all of them. It sounds to me that some of what you presented might be addressed with better information out to the voters. but I do have a quick question for you with regard to the boxes. If someone calls and says, can you come out to the sidewalk and get my ballot, are you not obligated to do that?
Yes, we are, but we're not open on Sundays.
I understand that.
But, so this is just for the voters' convenience to make sure that their ballot gets counted. It's very easy, it's very secure. We have cameras on all our ballot boxes. That was required by law. Now, in order for you to return your ballot by ballot box, it has to be a family member or yourself in order to return that ballot in that ballot box. And we have cameras on all of them. We had to put those in. We saved that information for 22 months. If we would have had that when one was occurring earlier, we would have been able to enforce it even closer for the folks that were involved in the election misconduct that took place here. They are secure. That ballot box, all it does, and they aren't counted willy-nilly. Every ballot that comes in from that box has to be verified with someone in the voter registration database. There was this 2,000 mules that a lot of folks were writing to me and talking about, is that they were stuffing ballot boxes. That can't happen. And the organization that put that information out, True the Vote, just responded this week to district court that they have no information to support what they said in that bill. And that went on for 2020. Those ballot boxes are secure, and it's the best way for folks who want to get their ballot to us most convenient. Convenience is a big deal. They should. And people who participate in elections should be able to do it. As long as the system's in place to prevent it from happening, misconduct from happening. And we do. There's a balancing act all the time that takes place. But that ballot box is something that the folks in Woodbury County really enjoy, and they want to see it stay here, remain in place.
Well, while you're up here, I have another question. What do you do to verify the legitimacy of people who come in after hours with a camera? How do you verify? How do you verify that they are that those ballots are entered legitimately? In other words, by a family member or by the voter?
Right now, because we have video on every one of those, the ballot box, anybody that's placed in that ballot box is on video. And we have to save that information for 22 months now, and we do. It's secure. And then once a ballot is placed in that box, we bring it in, we record it, and receive it in the same fashion if someone brought it in over the counter or if it was returned by postage. That's how we verify it, by looking at the number that's on there and making sure that we reconcile it with the registered voter in our database. The database is also all the time that is verified through the Department of Transportation. And
You didn't understand my question. My question was, how do you know that the person who has put the ballot in there had the right to do that?
because if it is ever questioned, we will have the video surveillance to say that that's who did it. But the concern, what I don't understand, that concern is, that's the law now. And a lot of the voter registration and voter administration is based on the honor system. But it doesn't really matter to me who's putting it in that ballot box, as long as we're verifying that it's a voter, a registered voter. And then, one of the things that happened with election misconduct here, I couldn't initiate any investigation based on just signature verification. But there was it was finally an individual who said, someone voted my ballot, and somebody's returned a ballot for me, and I didn't vote that ballot. That's the only time that I can do anything, and that's the same way if it occurred in a ballot box. If it was delivered by the ballot box, it's going to say on our website that we have the ballot for you. And the person that's, if there's a person out there that somebody sent a ballot in for them, then we are going to start an investigation. And then we can look at that surveillance, that video, to determine who put that in that ballot box.
Thank you.
We're going to move on, I think, because we have a lot of people waiting, and I know it took a lot of time. Again, just be respectful, we've got a lot of people, so the questions can be shortened in any way, we'd appreciate it. a lot of information, but there's a lot of people with a lot of concerns, so, go ahead.
Kathy Davis, Sioux City. I have some questions on a Senate study bill. It's number 3141, and I gave you all a copy of what was written in the Des Moines Gazette. It was early February. Anyway, Representative Bobby Kaufman and Senator Dan Dawson filed legislation that would put Iowa on a path to eliminate the individual income tax and protect state relief measures the Republicans have already passed. They are both the lead on the Tax Writing Ways and Means Committee. My question is, well, two other things. In this bill, it also would have the Iowa Public Employees Retirement System, IPERS, start managing the state's more than $3.5 billion taxpayer relief fund. Under the proposal, the new trust fund that would be created would receive an initial $2.6 billion transfer from the taxpayer relief fund. It would have an oversight board and contract through IPERS to invest those dollars. Now, I have several questions about that. The IPERS mission statement is to administer a cost-efficient retirement plan that provides lifetime pension payments to public employees and serves to attract and retain a quality workforce. Question: why involve IPERS with a trust fund that has absolutely nothing to do with their mission statement of providing a retirement pension for public employees? Who invested the state excess funds in prior years? Why can't they or the state treasurer do that? If you just put it in a CD, you can get a 5% return. And what is the benefit to IPERS of being involved in it? And is there any guarantee that says IPERS money and this trust fund money stay separate, and that IPERS can never be used for any funding for state government? Why is IPERS involved in it at all?
I am not on that committee, but having talked a little bit with Dan Dawson, first off, just to back up, right, there's the Iowa Taxpayer Relief Fund. The way that was defined before any of us were in the legislature was it was earmarked and basically it is specifically in cordoned off where it can't be used for other things. So right now it's basically locked in a fund. So they're projecting a way to reduce taxes and then use this money, which that's what it's for, is to kind of level it out and have a glide path going forward for, where revenue and spending kind of converge. So that's just the premise of it. But as far as using IPERS, obviously they manage a large fund, right, for Iowans, for people that are teachers and other ones that are entitled to be recipients of IPERS.
Which they are full-time employed in order to do.
Exactly. And so basically, I'm not going to speak for them because I can't get in their head, but they already have that responsibility, they have that expertise, and they're doing that full time. So basically, I would say it's more of a using that expertise and making sure that the significant money that's in this fund, while it's in the fund, is invested in a way that's fiduciarily responsible for Iowans, and it makes profit. So
there's nobody in the state that can do that?
well, there's that is a different role than most of Iowa government, right? I mean, Iowans aren't investors, we're not mutual fund managers, but IPERS essentially is. And so I don't think that part of the bill is a fundamental, that's not a fundamental piece of it. It's probably not something that they would say can't be negotiated or discussed, right? It's still a bill. It's a Senate study bill, so it's got a long ways before it became law. So I think those are good inputs, just thoughts I've had as well. Just to the last question about crossover, again, that money already is very segregated. It's specific, it's got a specific purpose, and the crossover between that and IPERS funds, thank you, I guess my time is up, but
So
I'm confident that that's not a risk.
What would prevent the state saying, okay, say IPERS did this, okay, and there's a shortfall. What's to prevent the state from coming in and say, okay, you guys were responsible for it, so now we're going to dip into your funds to make up the shortfall?
Well, first of all, my time is up, but the shortfall, I mean, I'm not even sure what you would mention that against, right? This is a fund that is programmed for use in future years, but that's a broad question. I'm not sure we can really fully discuss it today, but I'm confident they're not going to cross over, and I think I've already explained kind of the reason why they would envision them having that role.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
To address your question, and probably many more that will come up here. Number one, not every Republican is in favor of getting rid of the state income tax. So stop having a cow over that, if you would please. Because I am one of those who's going to be standing up against it, saying we can't get rid of it. Because if you're going to get rid of this pot of money, you've got to find another pot of money someplace else to take its place. So just give some of us radicals, if you will, a chance to do that. That's number one. Number two, it's also extremely important for everyone to understand, as you brought up this topic, I have not seen that bill yet. I have no idea about that bill at all. And before anything is going to happen, we will caucus as a Republican group and as a Democrat group, and we will hash these things out amongst ourselves. So I would just caution or ask you, I thank you, I see, that give us the opportunity to kick these things around amongst ourselves. Then if you don't like what comes out of it, then you can chew on us all you want. Okay? I understand your concerns, I get it, but just give us a chance to do our thing. Okay? All right, that's it.
Mayor Weinhardt from the Sioux City. Two things. Being a league member, one of our core functions is to ensure that everyone gets a right to vote and that their vote counts. And that's why we register voters. We don't say, are you Democrat or Republican? When we register voters, we register anyone who's not registered. So that is a core concern for us, and anything that makes it more difficult to vote or more difficult to have those ballots counted is huge. So please quit making it harder for people to vote. There's very few problems in the state of Iowa. There may be in other states, but there aren't here. I've worked the elections and have for years, and I'm very proud of our state. My question, I don't know if you can answer this or if it's even possible to change. The governor has turned back the funding from the federal government to feed Iowa's children this summer. It's a fairly large program. Iowa had to add a certain percentage to help with that. She stated that this was not going to help with Iowa's obesity problem, and it was not sustainable, both of which are false. The reason kids are happy, a lot of the reason is that their parents cannot afford decent nutrition. The cheapest foods in the grocery stores are usually junk food. This money would help the parents able to go to use some of these funds for farmers markets, where they could get fresh produce and good quality food. So I'm wondering, is there any way of undoing that decision? Thank you.
I would actually like to applaud the Nebraska governor for flipping. And it's interesting because it's one of the best return on investments the state could fund. For every dollar we put in, we get about $12.50 of federal money for this program. And so it goes to about $2 to $2.2 million that would cost the state of Iowa to feed 250,000 kids during the summer months. And so I don't know what she's thinking. The Democrats had proposed a bill that would allow other entities to fund the state to allow to bring it. So like a nonprofit that raised the funds. One of the clerks, our legislative clerks on the Democratic side, did the math, And it's disproportionately, it impacts Sioux City and would help Sioux City to do this, so,
Is it possible to get that money back?
I don't know. It's not unless we pass something in order to get it funded, so.
I would really love it if you guys would work towards that. Thanks.
I agree.
I'm Donna Nitsky, Sioux City. I'm going to talk about a ag bill, and it is SF 2371. It's a bill on nutrient management plans for feedlot operations. The current bill, which is an improvement on the original bill, creates an incentive for livestock operations to wait to file an NMP, a nutrient management plan, until the manure storage basin is almost full, risking water quality violations. This new bill would allow feedlots to dispose of manure according to the plans they proposed before the DRN approves the plan. It also allows feedlots to operate under plans that have been rejected by the DNR, pending an appeal of rejection. So these basins get really full of manure from the feedlots, and they start dispersing them. And there's really no plan in place that's been approved, which a lot of people are concerned about our water quality today in Iowa. There's many organizations that are questioning how we're treating our waterways and the water we drink, and it's growing. That concern is growing. I know you've been working at this for the last 10 years. What are we going to do about these feedlots? We have so many of them right now that it's really impacting our waterways. And at some point, you're going to have to make a decision how many is enough. Yes. My question is, what are you doing to really resolve this issue? Because it's ongoing. I know you're working on it, but it just seems like we can't come to more of a resolution.
I would like to reverse the table here. What do you propose? It's one thing for people to go out and complain or offer your concerns, so forth and so on, which is appreciated. I would like to have some people come up and say, here's a solution I would like you to consider. So what would be your solution to this problem?
Well, like I said, it compounds when you have so many feedlots and so much manure. And I think we have, at some point you have to say, what's going to be the cutoff of how many feedlots can we sustain in a certain area that's not going to impact and have runoff into our rivers from the manure, pesticides, whatever.
So you're proposing putting a lid on how many livestock operations we can have?
What do you think?
No.
I came here to have some answers from you and what you think. So I think it's only fair.
I'll tell you what
are your answers?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think. I think first we need to enforce our antitrust laws because corporations have too much damn power in this country.
Right.
If you look at, ask any, I think there's a lot of blame on hog farmers or pork producers when it comes to this. You look at Smithfield, who's owned by China Pork. In 2017, the CEO of China Pork made $291 million. That's more than Elon Musk that year. That's more than Tim Cook of Apple that year. So think of the money that's getting extracted from our area, paid to whoever the CEOs, wherever they're at, paid to Wall Street, and what do we get left with? We get left with shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Literally.
So what I want to do, we talk about, like, when people talk about the carbon pipeline and the reason, the purpose of that, it comes down to sequestering carbon. Do we want to sequester carbon through a huge pipeline that goes thousands of miles, or do we want to pay farmers to pay for their environmental services? Let's incentivize them for doing the right thing. Let's give them the money to put up buffer strips so the runoff doesn't, there's room between the fields and the waterway. But we got to incentivize them. We can't just ask them to do it when they're getting squeezed on the input side and the market side. We have to find a way to come to the solution. So when this farm bill comes, we see all the incentives are for the top farmers. That 90% of the farm bill goes to the top 10% of farmers. We have to change that. We can't get this mentality and these policies that get bigger, get off the farm are the wrong direction. So that's my 2 cents. I'm out of time. Thank you.
I'm going to put in my nickel's worth. Okay? I want to give you this example, and I think, to my knowledge, every livestock producer has to follow a master matrix plan with what they're going to do with their manure. My neighbor to the north, he doesn't like doing it, but he thinks it's the responsible thing to do, and every year he has to put one to the DNR. So I find it hard to believe that there's anybody in the state who's not abiding by those rules we already got. Now, don't put that up too soon. I want you to think about this. The most recent Super Bowl where there is information about it, they said that over 1 billion chicken wings were going to be eaten on the day of the Super Bowl. Over 1 billion. How many chickens does that take? Half of 1 billion is 500 million chickens. All right? Item number 2. How many people live in this country? 330 million, give or take. Let's pretend there are 3 people per family. That's how many families? 100 million families. We had to have how many chickens for Super Bowl? 500 million. How many of you are going to be willing to raise 5 chickens so you can take care of the Super Bowl? You live in a tall apartment building, how many are you going to raise 5 chickens? And guess what? That would be only the chickens that were eaten. What are you going to do about the chickens that need to lay the eggs to get more chickens? Or the food that you buy in the store that has eggs in it? I'm not trying to defend bad people who don't take care of their manure. I'm just trying to make the point. I see your sign. Go ahead and wave it at me. I'm just trying to make the point. We forget what it takes to feed people. We forget. And
this is our land. This is our land here. We only have so much.
I wonder how the indigenous folks.
In our water. And we, you've got to at some point say, do we want the entire Northwest Iowa just to be one big manure plant?
We already are.
I mean, think about how that's going to look.
We already are.
10 years down the road again, if we don't really take this more seriously about our water quality. A lot of people are questioning this in Iowa. They are. And we're looking to you for reasonable, rational answers. Thank you.
Thanks, Madonna.
Just, again, we have about half an hour, and we can't even get 5 minutes a person if we were to get anybody that's online to speak. So just try to keep your questions to the point, and so they have time to answer in 90 seconds, and we're good.
Question or a statement, and I'll be brief. Carrie Hall, citizen. Councilman Elswater is not able to be here today, so I'm speaking on his behalf. He said, I wanted to update everyone on the status of the Work Without Worry bill that was proposed in the House and the Senate. In the Senate, it was sponsored by Senators, he sent me an updated one, the first one was not correct. By Senator Zahn, and never received a subcommittee hearing. However, in the House, it was passed the subcommittee and recently passed the DHS committee 19-0. Although some changes were made, this bill would do an incredible amount of good to empower people with disabilities to enter or remain in the workforce. By remaining on Medicaid for the employed, they would pay more in taxes, make more money to generate more sales tax, and pay more of a monthly premium to Medicaid as their salary would increase. This bill would allow me to save for my future, get married, and continue to strive for promotions and raises within my career, something we all should have the autonomy to do. Please talk to House leadership about calling for a floor vote and rally your members to support this bipartisan bill. If you understand how the cliff effect worked regarding child care benefits, this is very similar. People with disabilities want to work, but want to do so without the fear of losing essential services. Thank you. And wanted me to remind you from the last forum that I believe his salary is capped at $35,000 a year. He loses benefits that get him out of bed in the morning. And he wants me to ask you if you support.
I generally understand what the bill is. I worked with Representative Turek on it and kept informed. He's the one that actually developed the bill. I haven't read it in detail yet, but generally speaking, I can support that bill.
Good. Thank you, Bob.
Good.
Woo!
Yes, for folks who don't know, Representative Turek's out of Council Bluffs, and he was born with spina bifida. Yeah, sorry, I'm not the most medical inclined person, but he's one of my favorite people down at the Capitol, and what he's doing is so impressive, shedding light on a lot of situations similar to this bill. This bill would be one of the best things we can do this session, and I'm going to do whatever I can to help both with. I appreciate Alex's advocacy on this, and I appreciate all the efforts from Representative Turek as well.
I support, I'll have to read the bill again, but I support the concept of the bill, obviously. It makes sense.
Awesome. And then just a quick statement. Yesterday we held a mental health forum here in this room. It was very well attended. Thank you guys so much for all of you who showed up. I think almost every single one of you were here. What I couldn't say yesterday, because I was moderating the event and I worked very closely with you, and I think you all know I carry a very professional demeanor. This is still very personal to me. I think I can speak for everyone in that room yesterday when I say we are past the point of asking for your help. We are begging for it. Your citizens and constituents are suffering. These kids are suffering. Mental health is in the toilet. I know that there's not a whole lot we can do this year, but this ball is rolling, and I'm working with the chamber, and these meetings are going to get bigger. So please consider how you can help for legislation next year. Thank you.
There was a lot of wonderful talk yesterday, but the stat that really stood out to me is 1,400 psychiatrists are needed in the state of Iowa, and currently we have 243.
Yep.
We have to do something.
I'm John Gregg. I'm from Sioux City. I'm on the board of the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. I'm here to talk about two bills. One's SSB 3129, it's in the Senate, and then HE 2104, which was in the House and was not made it through the Natural Resources Committee. This is a bill that's going to try to prevent the Department of Natural Resources from acquiring land available for sale at auction or by donation or purchase from any nonprofit corporation that acquired the real property in a competitive manner, including not limited at an auction. Now, need a short time, I'm going to turn it over to JD, who was on the committee who rejected the House bill.
Yeah, I was happy to be on that subcommittee. We rejected it. We got, I would say outside the AEA bill, this was the #2 bill that I've gotten comments on, probably because I was on the subcommittee for it, but and I didn't get one person in support of it, of that bill as well. And so this is a bill that comes up fairly regularly, I was told, in different versions of it. It's what I was been told, it's a Farm Bureau bill and just to put things in perspective, the lobbyist of the Farm Bureau said his 2 cents, and then he had to leave for another meeting. So it shows you how important they were, where we had a packed room full of people upset. So the one person who supported it left, and so it was a pretty easy no vote on that. And unfortunately, we're probably going to have to see it again next year, and it's just one of those things. But the advocacy, I know Graham McGaffin came down and spoke at it in the good work that he's doing, and just it's, hopefully, it's done, but we'll see.
Basically, the other argument of this issue, and the farm bureau's position would be that having a government entity that bids against you with government money, that's perception, is not a fair situation either. So I mean, there is a tension. It does come up every year, and it doesn't seem like it's made a lot of progress. I don't know. What was the bill number in the Senate? Can you repeat it?
I can find that out for you.
Oh, I think you read it, so I think I
3129.
Thank you.
I'm Terry McGaffin. Good. Here. Terry McGaffin from Sioux City, and I want to follow up on what Ms. Nitsky was asking regarding water quality. And she didn't specify, but I think she was referring to the voluntary nutrient reduction strategy, which is 10 years old now. And Iowa's waterways have become more polluted in the 10 years of this voluntary strategy. And so, Representative Carlson, you asked for us to offer solutions. There was, I think it was House File 2029 that would mandate filter strips. That would have been a good solution, but that bill did not make it through the funnel. And then there is another very radical solution that I can propose that's been proposed by a columnist for the Iowa State Daily, a man named Jaden Shahan, and he recommends that there be, in his words, one solution would be to treat pollution the same as other forms of, treat agricultural pollution the same as other forms of pollution and regulate it. He recommends that we tax the polluters instead of taxing the society that the pollution harms. He suggests a tax on the nitrogen content of mineral fertilizers and also a tax on animal units. And so Representative Carlson, you referred to the amount of chickens needed to feed the folks that watch the Super Bowl. It seems like such a long shot, but are there mandate solutions available? Are there taxation solutions available that could address the water quality issues that we are dealing with?
I'm going to respond to you in this way. I'm open to any ideas. That's why I'm asking for them, so that we can debate them. I am not made of concrete and unflexible. I do have a question, though, when it comes to mandating anything. Mandating filter strips. How many of you are so fired up to get the carbon dioxide pipelines in the ground that you're willing to run over the property rights of the landowners? Property rights are our bedrock in this country. And if you can't say or protect your property rights, then we are in a world of hurt. So when you start mandating a filter strip, which there was a bill out there that was presented that said mandate, that means what? You're going to take my property to do what you want with it. And I cannot stand for mandating those kinds of things, forcing me to take my hard-earned land out of and put it into whatever. So that's number one. I would be in favor of doing things with agriculture. You're a sweetheart. But I think we've got to put something on cities. How much work are the cities doing at keeping nitrogen out of the water? How many of you take the time to graduate your lawn seeder when you're putting on your fertilizer to keep your yard green? Do you just set it and, oh, it took me 3 bags, it's done? Now, you're shaking your head, you might be one that does it, or you may not even put it on. But my point is, I'm going to run out of time. And the last thing is, I get so frustrated with one of the solutions, let's tax them, let's tax them, let's tax them. I, for one, am tired of being taxed. So there's got to be a better alternative. It's an interesting thought. I'm done.
Thank you.
Hello again. I'm Marty Pottobon. I'm chair of the Police and Fire Pension System in Iowa. After last month, I was hoping I could come here and talk about a specific bill and say how great it was going. Unfortunately, there isn't one. We're not silly enough to think that the state's ever going to pay what they promise. We know that's not gonna happen. It's $203 million they've shorted us. They're not gonna pay that. But you keep bragging about the surplus, and you wanted a solution? I got one. Go back and pay the 3.79% of payroll that was promised back in 1978 and paid every year until 1992. And then they gradually lowered the percentage until they told us, oh, it's such a pittance amount of money, we're just gonna quit paying it all together. I'm sorry, it was a promise made, not by any of you. You were not. I was a policeman at the time. But you brag about your surplus. I'd like to pay less taxes, but I know that I can't just skip all my bills for 1 month and then say, I got this big surplus I'm gonna find something to do with. Pay your promises, pay your bills. All we're asking is to reinstate that 3.79% of payroll, which was the promise made to the police and firefighters. Everybody backs the blue until it's time to write the check. And public safety is pretty important. Police and fire, they don't get Social Security. Our pension is all they get. So all we're asking is keep your promise.
My name is Tom Padgett, I'm from Sioux City, and just one comment before I ask my couple of questions here, and that is I was a long time on the city council, and I can very much remember how we spent millions of dollars and are now looking to spend maybe another $40 million on wastewater treatment. And all during this time, the Iowa legislature, in their infinite wisdom, said we can't do anything about the point sources. In other words, we can't do anything about that property and those farmers that are producing this, but you have to take care of it at the city point. So every bit of sewage that we get in from South Sioux, from north of here, Sioux City, we have to take care of. I just want to say. And the other thing is, I can remember in my time on the council, a lot of mandates, but they came from the federal government and they came from the state legislature. So I'm not a big mandate person either, but it's not like the legislature isn't really good at making mandates. Thank you. A couple questions. How a study bill 3102, SSB 3102, allows landlords to use prohibited rental agreements so long as they don't actually enforce the prohibited provisions. I guess I'm just wondering about the logic of that. Maybe I'm missing something. I'm not very bright. So, Senate File 2095 says it's the Religious Freedom Act, and I guess I don't know what religious freedoms it's going to give me that I don't already have. And finally, in Senate Bill 30, Study Bill 3016, my old friend back when we were mayors, Brad Zahn, Senator Brad Zahn, really wants to get something through about traffic cameras. He's had that on his list for many, many years. So this year, he's tacked it on to a really good bill, which is a hands-free bill that says when you are driving, you're not supposed to be on your phone and texting. You know, you can't have it in your hand, although it does say you can do it for a brief amount of time. I think you need to remove brief amount of time. If you're going to have a hands-free bill, have it hands-free. But please uncouple it from the removal of traffic cameras. They are not for as much as people think they're for money. I somehow don't ever understand how, if you're going 75 miles an hour in the 55-mile-an-hour zone that we used to have when we first installed those cameras, in the parts where I-29 was being redone, and people from all over would buzz through there at 75 miles an hour. You had to be going at least 12 miles an hour to get a ticket. And then they'd say, well, I need to be caught by a real officer. That camera is unconstitutional. Well, it's sort of like saying if I'm going 75 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour zone, I'm not really speeding. Yeah, you're speeding if you're going 75 miles an hour. So if you get a ticket, and I got one for rolling a stop sign one time, and I thought for sure I was not going to get caught. So please, I didn't think, I thought I stopped, but I looked at the film, and you know what? It was kind of a rolling stop. So I paid my $100 and went on my way. But I really would like you to uncouple that piece from the hands-free bill. Thank you.
Yeah, Tom, I can tell you that bill, companion bill to that did not get through the House. And I doubt seriously if the Senate bill, when it's sent over, will have that happen as well. And primarily, the objection to it was your first objection, and that was, we coupled together too, and maybe it's not an omnibus, but it's not a minibus. And you know, they're two unrelated, and interestingly, people are against it substantively on one issue or the other. So I don't see much, I don't see much in advance that that's going to pass.
So I can't comment on that 3102. I'll have to read that. I wrote it down. Senate File 2095, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So basically what it does is make sure that the First Amendment remains the First Amendment. So it says that if you feel that if you believe that your religious rights have been infringed upon, you have a right of that. You have a cause of action. So you basically have standing. You can bring a charge. And the government would use strict scrutiny when it does that evaluation. So basically, it's going to use the highest judicial standard for that process. So it's not a matter of establishing new rights. It's basically establishing that your religious rights are the first right in this country. It's what our country was founded on, and ensuring that that's the case. So the last one, I think, has already been talked about, so I'll let it go.
I'm L.A. Carol Savage, live in Sioux City. Say, guys, I'm back here with the nursing home problem. Yeah, you got a big problem, and you guys aren't doing anything. I've asked for information. I gave you papers with questions, my phone number, name on it. I haven't heard a thing from any of you. Why? Don't you, I mean, you go to work at 1 o'clock on Mondays, you're done on Thursday, stay Friday and go to these different departments and ask, and have them call me or get a hold of me. If maybe you don't want to. That's all I'm asking for. There's so many problems out there. You know, if a doctor gives you medicine to keep you well and keep you alive, but if that nurse or employee steals that or doesn't give you them pills, is that attempted suicide, or excuse me, attempted murder, or is it murder when they die? In different departments, police departments, put your hands, fight with your wife and you put your hand on her neck, it's attempted murder. You guys got to get together. Talk about leaving the money in the state. Most of these nursing homes, they're out. They don't, their home office isn't here. Same way they don't pay any taxes. Why? Because they look at the third quarter, we're making too much money, we're going to have so much, we better spend this on, take them off that, make them pay just like everybody else. Same way, you have channels. You have the city hall, the county, the school board, all have channels that you guys can be using. I'm sure they'll let you get on there and talk and present programs to us and what these bills are. I mean, I get 2 different guys, I get back reply, well, I think this is a good bill because of this. The other one writes back, no, I think it's because of this. Well, I want to read the bill then. Put it on the screen, let it run 24 hours a day. And now you're in the nursing home and you got a problem with the health, with stealing or whatever. Some medicines require a paper trail. That means when it comes in the building, you date it in, you keep that all the way through there. My wife happened to have one. We asked for it the last day, and it was nowhere to be found. It was nowhere. You know what I got back from? Unfounded complaint. Well, I don't give up. I keep looking and I keep digging. And that's the reason why I'm back here now. I want to get you guys in gear and get going. You've got to get, I mean, it don't take, so you stay up Friday and get me out of your hair and then you can do whatever you want to do.
So I'll address this.
I'd rather not have you answer right now because I got guys behind me that want to go and I got a few other things to say here.
Oh. Well, let me maybe just one more question because we got to move.
Well, they're the same questions. They're just, so who do I notify? The police, you know, fire, do I notify highway patrol, the city police, the county sheriff?
Do you want to maybe meet with them afterwards? And
Division of Corrections, you know, for this mistake that was made. Same way, they should just suspend a nurse's license, 30 days. She should have been in jail. Same way, you have male age, you have female age. And right here in town, we had a male that was fooling around with the gallows. They complained about it. Oh, it doesn't happen in mine. I had the same administrator, so she said the same thing. Until we brought it up on a complaint.
If I can just hold you there for a minute. A couple of things. First of all, I don't know if you're aware, but you can get on the legislative site and public access and read any bill that's out there. It's all there.
I want to read it on the paper, put it on the TV. The rest of these people would like to see what these bills are. I don't want to take your view of it and his view of it, because they're both different parties and they're going to come up there. Let me read it so I can get back to you. What do you guys do to come out and tell these people I'm having a meeting?
The second thing I wanted to tell you is I just had a conversation with Representative Fry, who's running a bill in Health and Human Services. I haven't read the bill yet. It doesn't need to be passed until later, but it addresses a lot of the concerns that I know you've had.
I don't care. I want to read. You're representing me, this district, these people. They want to know. You get on that channels and you start telling what's going on, so we know. I think everybody would love to know a lot more than what they know. I'm surprised there's that many people here right now. I guess you had a big crowd last week, but I didn't see the notice that you were having it. I've been here then. You guys, like I say, just get back to me. You got the numbers. If you don't, that's your legislation.
I'm here to talk about gun violence and making our schools safer. Last week it was suggested that we arm teachers. I was in education and a teacher for over 30 years. 16 of those was at West High School. I was leading a group of mediators in 2001 when Columbine occurred. And my mediators, among others, filled the front page of the Sioux City Journal with their thoughts and suggestions for confronting school violence in a nonviolent, non-armed way. Last week in West Middle School, a student brought a gun to school. Fortunately, he kept that gun, or she kept that gun, I'm not sure who the perpetrator was, in his backpack all day long. And authorities found out at the end of the day that there had been a gun at school. The individual was confronted, I guess, the next day and admitted that he had a gun.
So I just want to state, I'm sorry, I'm the Associate Superintendent for Sioux City Schools. That's a rumor, and there was a toy gun.
It was a toy gun, yes.
Yep, and the student was, and it was reported after school. And the authorities were notified immediately, the police were.
Great.
And they were able to talk to the student and even go to the home and get the toy gun before school started. Just
thank you very much. I think what we can all agree on is that there are ways of relieving a tense situation, a violent situation, in a peaceful way. That's what mediation is. About 25 years ago, Governor Branstad was confronted with a lot of incidents of bullying. He nearly passed legislation that would allow conversation and mediation in the schools. The old guard discouraged him from doing that, and he let up with the pressure. Mediation will work. Nonviolence will work. Please don't allow guns to be brought to school. We had a legislator this week say that the scariest thing that he sees is a sign that says, school zone, no weapons, or non-violent zone. I don't understand a statement like that. We don't need guns at school, even if they're in a locked car in the parking lot. We don't need guns at school. Gentlemen, please do what you can to confront the school violence situation, because we're scaring everybody to death, including our kids who we want to learn and trust the school setting. Thank you very much.
My name's Beth.
Beth Tischer. I'm here speaking as an individual and the president of the Professional Staff Association for Northwest Area Education Agency. And we also fall under the Iowa State Education Association. I want to thank you for being here, but I'm here to advocate against what used to be Senate Study Bill 3158. I know it's now become Senate File. I don't have the number off the top of my head. But I just want to say that our employees deserve to have groups behind them. So please ensure that when employers don't submit a list to PERB, that the repercussions don't fall on the associations. It shouldn't be our responsibility to shoulder the lack of responsibility on an employer's part. It needs to be, if we're going to do this, the 5-day timeline that we would have to file in a district court and all of the things, it doesn't make sense. So I just encourage you to really think about making some changes to that bill if you move it forward, and I just want to ask about the status of that bill currently.
The new bill number is Senate File 2374.
Okay,
Is the
thank you.
new certified? Yes, Senate File 2374.
I think the status is that it's through committee, so it's through FUM. So, and I think it's only, I believe it's only in the Senate. So it would have to come to the floor and potentially be amended on the floor if changes. I've had some discussion with a couple of people thinking that they're to address that concern, that it really puts the pressure on, well, the number of people, I guess, that are on the list has to be provided by the school, but in reality, it has an effect on the union. So I think there could be some discussion on, and maybe some changes that would address that part of it. But anyway, where it's at is it's in the Senate, I believe. The Sioux committee would have to get through the Senate, and then we'll go to the House and get passed for it to actually take effect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have about 3 more minutes, so I'm going to
Well, Beth addressed one of my questions, so I'll be more brief. Caitlin Dre, I'm a Sioux City resident. Senate File 2311, I could not find an associated House bill number, but this, in my understanding, has passed the Senate, which is bypassing the state auditor's office, allowing individual offices to hire outside auditors. This, to me, is an egregious use of taxpayer dollars. We already have a state office that performs this function. So I am curious as to your position and what you'll be doing to either support or oppose that legislation.
Well, I'll talk about it since I'm the senator in the room and it went through the Senate. So this bill passed on bipartisan. I didn't vote for it, but it wasn't.
Can I ask why?
Say again.
Why did you vote for it?
Well, I'll back up and just to clarify. So basically, the auditor's office uses independent or basic contract auditors itself. It is not populated with. It's not everybody in the office is even a CPA. Basically, this bill you're talking about. I guess you sound like the proposition is saying that this will be a wasteful process, that it's going to employ people.
Is there an issue with the process as it stands? Am I understanding that correctly? That your position is there's an issue with the current auditor's office?
There have been some issues with timeliness as far as completing audits.
So how does hiring a different CPA in a different department bypass the timeliness?
Well, it's not a different department. It basically would allow for, just like there already happens at state and local level, local and county level, they can use a certified public accountant to do their audits. So this really just makes that consistent across the state. And again, the auditor uses private contracted auditors for some of their internal audits already. So basically what it does is it creates a competitive network or a situation where if the idea would be, first off, it's not required. It makes it an option that you can basically put it out for bid. But the argument would be
Does the auditor's office not put their subcontractors out to bid?
Well, they might for their internal stuff, but this basically enables state entities that have to be audited to put it out for an RFP to have a private CPA firm do that.
What's the oversight then? Is that audit still reported as public findings? Is it available?
Yeah, that's the same. And the auditor always retains the ability to review whatever audit that takes place. I mean, just like it's true now.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Representative, do you have a position? I haven't seen it. Okay, thank you. My only other question would be to you again, Senator Lons. In regards to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, is that what we're calling it?
Yes.
Is the First Amendment not a sufficient metric to meet? When you're talking about it enforces or like props up the First Amendment, so the First Amendment is not sufficient in defending religious freedom, am I to understand that's your position?
I would say that the lack of strict scrutiny and the ability to always bring a challenge when your religious rights have been enforced.
Okay, and is your position all religions then, not limited to just Christianity? So if I was Jewish or Muslim, I would also be able to bring
Absolutely.
this? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Do we have time for maybe one more question? Is that okay? Maybe just one more. Cool.
Hey, I made it. Okay, so actually what I'd like to address is House File 2389. I think it's still in the House. I don't know if there's a companion bill in the Senate. But basically this one reads, an act relating to the term sex and related terms for purposes of statutory construction, including an indication of a person's sex on certain vital records. So here we go again with yet another bill that the legislation is completely obsessed with, sex and gender and things that is none of their concern. All of the people that went before me brought up so many issues that are so much more important than our legislators, again, obsessed with sex and gender and transgender people and who's transgender and who is not. Coming back to one of those very first questions, what's going to keep young people here? I'll tell you what doesn't. Legislating hate. They're going to remember as they get older, they're going to see their friends in school targeted. And they're going to start to understand that the legislation passed that makes that easier is not a good thing. And when they're older, they're going to pack up their families and go. I personally know 3 families in the last year that have left Sioux City for that exact same reason. You want money in this state? Well, you need taxes. I'll tell you what doesn't help when people pack up their families and go because they feel like their children are going to be a target in the school, because we know that some of our legislators up here have blindly supported hateful legislation targeting transgender folks.
Yep.
It's not okay, and it needs to stop. So my question is, actually for JD, because I think he's going to know, where is House File 2389 and what's happening with it?
Well, it came out it's in the education, and I'm not on that, so I don't know. What I do know is that there's more bills to discriminate against transgender kids and athletes specifically than there are transgender athletes in the state of Iowa. And to me, it's a form of punch down politics that, you look at the mental health issue we talked about yesterday, you talk about nursing homes, talk about immigration, talk about all these things. And I mean, I'll say one of the most valuable assets we have as just humans is time. And the amount of time we spend on this crap down at the Capitol is very just worrisome, and just, it's frustrating because when we have these bills, all these people come to the Capitol to rally because they're trying to protect their freedom and their civil rights. And the effort that's spent on some of these bills when we could be trying to solve and have solutions to some of our problems, it's extremely frustrating, especially being in the minority party.
Thank you. The last thing I wanted to share is there is a vigil right after this for a 16-year-old non-binary two-spirit individual who was murdered in Oklahoma. And his own mom pointed out that they were more of a target after similar legislation that they're looking at here in Iowa was passed in Oklahoma. I hope you'll join us. Thank you.
We have one Facebook Live question we want to get. We did have Facebook Live and asked them to enter questions, so we don't want to ignore them. So if you have that question.
Okay, this is kind of an ending question anyway. William Burroughs said, if you read the book When Mackenzie Comes to Town, you quickly learn that lobbyists rule the world, including national and state legislators, which is no secret. This is from William. That said, Who is your favorite and least favorite lobbyist and why?
My least favorite lobbyist is one who just browbeats you to no end. My most favorite lobbyist is one who listens and is willing to accept my views one way or another. And I'm not going to pick on anybody in particular, because that would not be worthwhile. But that's how I would define my most favorite and least favorite. And I would also add, there is not a single lobbyist that rules my legislative career. I stand on my own 2 feet. I am not propped up by anything other than God's word. So that's where I'm coming from on that. I also need to respond to this male-female thing, which it blows me away that we even need to talk about. But I had my eyes checked just this past week, and I started visiting with my optometrist about that particular bill. And he said, and these are his words, not mine, not the lobbyist's words, he said, I have got to know if it's a male or a female so that I can properly prescribe or help or do whatever with my patient. And if that individual is choosing to lie or mislead or whatever the case might be, or hold it back, that is a detriment to his work. So that's just one example of maybe not necessity is not the right word, but a need for it. So.
Concerning lobbyists, I can't speak for the federal system of what goes on in Congress, but at the state level, I have not found lobbyists to be high pressure. They obviously advocate for their positions, but they are a great source of information because they are well versed on issues. I think probably today we talked about, maybe 20 issues here. We passed 55 bills in the House. And if we're not informed on those from one side as well as the other, we cannot make informed decisions. I suspect that you don't want people down there doing that. They're not informed, and the lobbyists are a great source of information on that. I have never felt highly pressured. Now, they will advocate strongly for their positions without any question, but they will also answer them. And I've told many of them, I appreciate your position on this, but I can't support it, and that's not a problem for them.
My favorite lobbyist is Matt Fitzgerald because at the legislative basketball game he gives me somewhat of a competition. I'll say this, is that it is, when I get asked, like, what's the biggest shock when you get down there, it's the amount of breakfasts and dinners and happy hours and all that crap, and you realize, like, I don't know if I'm going to be there in 5 years, 2 years, whatever, 10 years, but all those groups are still going to be there. So it makes you kind of wonder who runs this state. And I know we all have our integrity and we vote the way we want to vote, but it's, to me, that's worrisome. And I will say that the gentleman who sits next to me is a Republican, and last year he got up after he was fed up and said, I'm sick and tired of the corporate lobbyists lined up in the speaker's office in the back row there, and that was the first time I applauded a Republican on the House floor.
So my least favorite lobbyist would be someone that basically doesn't tell me the whole truth, right? If you catch them on a lie, then you're done with it. And I think that's true with any relationship. And the converse of that is, the lobbyists that I respect the most are people that come to you with obviously they defend their ideas, they're willing to share the opposing view and basically give the full picture instead of trying to just snow you on their side of the issue. So that it all comes down to being honest and authentic.
I just want to thank, that concludes our forum today. We want to thank legislators, the audience, Student Growth Organization, the Mayor's Youth Commission timers for being here today. Our last Legislators Forum will be Saturday, March 23rd, 10 o'clock here again at the museum. Just a reminder again, it was already brought up by Jackie, that the Great Plains Action Society and Winnebago Two-Spirit is hosting the event in honor and memory of Nex Benedict, the 16-year-old non-binary student who was beat up and end up dying. She was beat up in the school bathroom. So that's, I think, taking place outside of the museum at this time. But again, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate it.
Get around, yeah, Marty, I knocked you over, I don't care.
I'm just trying to show the crowd.